All right, so yesterday we worked on a lot of different things, and you had some time to kind of play around with the tools and mess around with them a little bit. But we're going to go ahead and I'm going to start with a new artboard. I'm going to keep it at my letter size, again noting that my units are in inches so that I have a proper size document. So if I start with that, I get this blank sheet of paper. A reminder, Control plus zooms in, Control minus zooms out, and then Control 0 gives you a full screen. So those are three things that could be very helpful, okay? So the very first thing that I really did not talk about too much yesterday, most of what you did was just like I deleted it if I didn't like it. What happens if you're using, like, for example, the pen tool, and you're working on drawing something, and don't forget, I click and I hold the click and I drag it out to get a curve, or I do individual clicks to get straight lines. So let's say I get this, I'm like, nope, I don't like that. Now I have to make this whole shape over again. No. One of your best friends is undo. Some of you found it up in your menu here. I can undo my last action. But even easier is if you remember another keyboard shortcut. There's going to be some that stick with you constantly. There's going to be some you always have to look up, or some that you just do it the long way, and that's fine. But Control Z is going to be one of your best friends, okay? Specifically because Control Z will undo. I don't even have to go up there. I can Control Z. There's where I was. I wanted that to be here. I closed my path, and I want to pull that up. Beautiful. So I didn't have to redo this entire thing. So don't forget my undo. Control Z will undo, and in Illustrator, it'll continue to undo, unlike Photoshop where it just undoes the last action and I need to use a different command to keep undoing, okay? So I've got that, and it's really important. Let's say you want to redo it. You can do Shift Control Z, and you can, again, I hold the Shift, I hold the Control, and I tap the letter Z, and there I am. Okay, so that's a bit of a helper for you. Control Z, I will tell you, though, will be very, very helpful, okay? So the next tool, notice I'm going to go to my selection tool, the black arrow, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete that, all right? So the next tool I want to show you can help you with shaping kind of irregularly shaped objects. I hate using this tool for perfect objects. So things like a perfect square, a perfect circle, don't even bother using this because they're not going to look as clean as you want them to. But there's this tool right over here called the Blob Brush. The Blob Brush is a lot of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give the Blob Brush some color so you can see it. You can see right now, it's a small, tiny brush. I'm at a 5-point oval. I'm going to actually go back to just a round. There's another keyboard shortcut which makes it a lot easier to give yourself a bigger blob brush or a smaller one, and those are the bracket keys. If you look on your keyboard, kind of right above where the Enter key is, you'll see it looks like the right half of a box and the left half of a box. Those are your bracket keys. So the right one will make your cursor bigger, the left one will make it smaller. So that's really helpful because a lot of times you'll see my left hand is sitting on that particular keystroke, and then I'll be working with it, and then I'll be changing the size of it as needed, okay? So, right now I have no fill, I have a black outer stroke. I could change that. I could go into green, but you notice it keeps defaulting back. I'm going to go ahead and change my outer stroke to green, and you'll see that that's what I get. So basically what happens with the Blob Brush is that I can continue building on this shape in that same exact color family. I can now go to my regular selection tool, click on this, and that is all one path. This is all another path. Notice they're two distinctly separated objects. Even this one is separate because even though it's the same color, it was separated and it was apart. So the Blob Brush will take any like object in that same area and it will turn that into a vectored shape. So I can now change that and I could make it green if I wanted to. And you can see it's even got holes in it where my Blob Brush didn't continue. That can be really, really helpful, and you'll find it's going to be helpful tomorrow. Well, today, of course, but tomorrow in the project we're going to work into, you're going to find that it's going to be really cool, okay? We did, again, I can Control Z, get rid of all this, or I could just go ahead and drag a big box and hit the delete key over what I don't want, okay? I'm going to go over a couple of these right here, the polygon and the star tool. I didn't give you a lot of options with them yesterday, but there are more options with them, which are pretty cool. So if I go to my polygon tool, if I click one time without clicking and dragging, it actually allows me to change the amount of sides that are on my polygon. So if I wanted a 6-sided figure, a hexagon, I can go ahead and say, there we go. The other cool thing is I can actually click and drag. While I have that click still held, I could use my up arrow and my down arrow to decrease the amount of sides. So I can get a perfect triangle with that. I can get a perfect square. I've got the up arrow. There's my pentagon, hexagon. I don't know what a 7-sided figure is. Well, heptagon, thank you. We've got our octagon, and we'll call it a 9-agon, and a 10-agon, and 11. Yeah, I know there's names for them, but you kind of get my picture there, okay? So that's what's really cool about that function, and that function also works with my star tool. With my star tool, again, I click one time. I can tell it how many points I want. Actually, let me go ahead and do that again. I say 12 points. There's my 12-pointed star. Or I could make it and then increase or decrease the amount of points that are on that star. Okay? So those are really cool things that you can do with those specific shape tools that will really, really help you along your way. Okay? So there's that. Now, there's, oh, sorry, wrong tool. Again, we can get rid of it really quick. We've cleared our artboard and we're ready to go. There's one last thing that I want to show you which could really help you on your way today. And that's going back to my friend the pen tool. Now, don't forget, right here, it looks like my shape is completed. It looks like it's perfectly completed. It's not! Because I haven't gone back to my first shape and closed it. Okay? It's really important because if I leave it like this, now you may need to do this at some point, of course. But if I leave it like this, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to select that pathway. Let's say all of a sudden I want to put a hot pink outer stroke around it. I'm going to make it quite dramatic. You're going to see that I did not close it. So you're going to see that open area. For some of you, that's exactly what you might need. Maybe it's a specific shape that you don't want to have an edge or an outer stroke on. For the rest of you, you might need it. So what you can do is you can actually go, we haven't really talked about this direct selection tool, the white arrow. You can actually point edit these things. So this selects the entire pathway. This will select an individual point on the pathway. So I can go ahead and select it. I'm going to hover right over here. Haven't clicked anything. If I hover over the top with my mouse, you're going to find that it'll identify on the path when you get to an anchor point. And again, the anchor point is just like a push pin in a bulletin board. Those are like our big things, and then the pathway is the string that I would put in between it. So what I do is I can select the anchor point. So now I've activated it. Now I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to get it to the end of my other pathway right there. So now I can actually manipulate that. Let's say, man, I really wanted this to be a curve. Well, let's say I'm going to click it to activate it. I'm going to actually move it a little bit because I like it better there. But I really wish I would have made that a curve like over here. I can now do that. So again, you want to make sure it's active, so you click on it one time, and then you're going to convert it. You can convert it to a corner, which would be like it is right now, where it's a hard edge. Or I can convert to smooth. So I can go ahead and click that. You're going to see that it allows that to now become a curve. It also has handles, just like the handlebars on a motorcycle or a bicycle. You can click on that handle and you can manipulate it. You can alter it in whatever way you find is helpful for your design. Again, I urge you to be really careful about twisting and turning because sometimes you get a very undesirable result that's hard to get back. But it is really important that you know that those, that those can be altered as you go. You can shorten them if it's kind of getting in the way. so it doesn't affect too much more. You can lengthen it to pull that curve out a little bit more smoothly, etc. Okay? So those are some really, really important tools. So again, my direct selection tool, I can directly edit an anchor point. Again, really key vocabulary terms here for Illustrator. I can convert that to smooth, so it's a curve. I could say I'm going to grab this one, and I want to convert that one back to a corner. If I needed to, I'm going to throw one more thing out there. If you look underneath the pen tool, I can add and delete anchor points. So I can add an anchor point onto my pathway right there, because let's say I'm going to go back to my direct selection tool and I'm going to select him, select off and then back on sometimes to make sure. I wanted that one to be a corner because I want to pull that one up this way. Again, I go back to my delete anchor point. I could say, nope, I really didn't want that. Hover over the top. You can see that minus sign at the pen. Get rid of it. But I would say a really big tip for you, please, when you are done, go back to your regular pen tool and just leave it anchored in your menu like that, simply because otherwise later on you're going to try to use it and it's not going to work because you have it on add or remove anchor point and you don't realize why, then you get frustrated. Don't forget, ask tons of questions, please. Okay? So again, you had a few things today. We talked about our undo and redo, Control Z and Shift Control Z. We talked about the Blob Brush. Again, hover over the top. He's like 5 tools down on the right column. Our Blob Brush tool. We talked about changing the amount of sides that are on our Polygon and Star tool. And then we also talked about point editing with our Direct Selection tool and our Add and Delete anchor points. So those are some key things to kind of get you going today. What you're going to do today is you're going to construct your favorite candy. I want you to find your favorite candy, find an image of your favorite candy, and I want you to start using some of these tools to help you construct it. When you go over to Google or whatever your search engine of choice is, what you're going to find, and I'll show you right here, there's this term called SVG. It's a file save type that allows you to get some shapes that are pretty approachable. They are generally a more simplified shape that allows you to do a little bit better with copying the effect and not having it be like an actual piece of candy like that, which might be a little bit more difficult for you to translate mentally into what we need to do in Illustrator. Okay? So you can go ahead and type in your favorite candy and see what comes up when you put in the search term SVG. And here, look at, if I wanted to, I suppose I could count up how many sides are on there, see if I can make a star with that many sides. There's a few other ways of doing that, but again, I want to kind of give you some baby steps, of course. You can you can work on the logo, you can work on actually like completing the candy itself. But what I would say is, don't spend 12 years fussing over it, because you're going to end up not giving yourself enough time to try it. If anything, just type in candy SVG. It doesn't have to be your favorite candy. Just make some candy. Look at how those shapes can happen, and then we're going to look at how they can happen a little bit easier tomorrow after you've kind of discovered your way and gone through it, okay? Basic candy shapes. Again, if I go in here, I can go ahead to my oval tool, my ellipse. Actually, you know what? Delete. I am going to do one with my rounded rectangle. I'm going to pull that rounded rectangle out, and I'm going to just do a plain black one. I'm going to have a black outer stroke on it. And then I'm going to come in with my Blob Brush. I'm going to zoom in using Control Plus so I can be a little bit more accurate. I can also change the size of my Blob Brush with my left and right bracket. And I could even come in there, kind of color that in. Technically, I could come in there and I could grab that shape I just made and make an exact copy for the other side. Of course, I don't need to do that, but again, it's possible.